Finally, I am done with my work. I am posting this video today not to win anyone's sympathy, but because I can't hold it in any longer. My company failed, and I have too many disappointments in my life. Now I am in debt for 1.9 million. I dare not tell anyone, not even my parents, because they are old. I am afraid they will be sad and unable to bear it. Since I am not young anymore, I am already 40 years old. China's real estate crisis and economic downturn, coupled with the CCP's crackdown on private and foreign companies, have led to high unemployment, weak domestic demand, and the middle class returning to poverty. A survey shows that 80% of Chinese consumers believe they have experienced consumption downgrade. The phenomenon of consumption downgrade in first-tier cities is shocking. Whether in Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, or Shenzhen, the former consumption boom has now subsided. Instead, people are tightening their belts and holding their wallets tightly, and many young people have begun to save money. Everyone has reduced consumption, and the once bustling shopping malls have now become deserted. Today, we will talk about the topic of Chinese people's consumption downgrade. In the first half of last year, the total retail sales of social consumer goods in first-tier cities declined across the board. Shenzhen fell by 2.5%, Beijing by 6.3%, and Shanghai and Guangzhou were even worse, with drops of nearly 10%. Don't underestimate these numbers. Behind them, countless restaurant and retail owners are suffering, which means that the purchasing power of Chinese consumers has collapsed. We can see the extent of the local middle-class consumption downgrade from what happened recently in Shanghai. First, the middle class used to frequent the fitness chain Wells, but Wells encountered a business crisis last year, and a wave of closures broke out at the end of last year. Wells primarily targeted the middle and upper classes in Shanghai, with the middle class making up most of its customers. Over the past 2 years, the economy has been bad, and fewer people have taken private lessons. The biggest profit source disappeared, and Wells couldn't even pay the rent. Secondly, some high-end postpartum care centers in Shanghai have also begun to close. Why can't these centers stay afloat? Ordinary people can't afford them, and the middle class, who used to be the main consumers, no longer go. There are also fewer students in Shanghai's international schools than before. In the past, middle-class families wanted their children to receive a better education and climb the social ladder, so they preferred sending them to international schools. But since last year, many middle-class families have transferred their children to public schools because their incomes have dropped, and the expensive tuition has become too much of a burden. Beijing's middle class, who have cars and houses and earn 1 million yuan a year, used to have no worries about food and drink, so why has their consumption level declined? The first and biggest reason is that Beijing's housing prices have dropped. A property originally worth 10 million yuan has now decreased to 7.5 million yuan, a direct loss of 2.5 million yuan. If you have to pay tens of thousands of yuan in mortgage loans every month, how can you dare to spend? In addition, Beijing's economy is struggling. Many large companies are cutting salaries and laying off employees. Many small businesses are also facing difficulties, especially in traditional industries like catering, where competition is fierce. We went to eat at a New World restaurant 2 days ago. It was a large restaurant of about 100 to 200 square meters. Yet, at 12 noon, there were not many customers. How could it not be losing money? No one is making money now, so how can they afford to spend? Let me tell you about an outrageous situation in Shanghai. The middle class in Shanghai no longer get married or have children. They own 3 houses in Shanghai, 1 in Sanya, and 2 abroad. To what extent has their consumption been downgraded now? As the Chinese mainland economy continues to decline, the unemployment rate is rising, especially among young people. The pressure of life is increasing, and many young people are starting to save money to cope with an uncertain future. On the Chinese mainland social platform Xiaohongshu, many young people share their experiences of saving on shopping expenses. Some internet celebrities share tips on how to spend less. There have been more than 1.5 million posts on how to save money, with a total of 130 million views. Young people must learn to downgrade consumption. I used to have a monthly salary of 20,000 yuan, live a so-called refined life, drink a cup of coffee for 30 to 40 yuan a day, and go to restaurants and bars for entertainment and shopping from time to time. Moonlight Tribe and pre-consumption were synonymous with my previous life. I pursued temporary happiness and fell into the trap of consumerism. When I learned to downgrade consumption, I realized that 1 cup of coffee could buy 2 tails of pork ribs, and 100 wen could buy so many snacks in the supermarket, enough for me to eat for a week. I didn't like shopping in supermarkets before. I thought it was too troublesome. It was more convenient to buy online and have items delivered to my door. But now I know that supermarket discount promotions are more cost-effective than the full discounts on some apps. Here, you can get a Coke for 1 yuan, snacks for 1 yuan, and daily necessities for 1 yuan. In fact, downgrading consumption does not mean not consuming at all, but rather cutting out unnecessary expenses, ensuring quality of life while making more cost-effective choices. China's stock market fluctuates, young people are stuck with loans for stock trading, and the market is wailing. Recently, China's stock market fluctuated and fell, leaving many young people stuck with loans for stock trading, and the market was wailing. The industry warned that investors should be prepared for a crash. Please see the report. Chinese people. Who would have thought that it was a bull market a day ago? I was up 90,000 yesterday and lost 140,000 today, including principal and interest. The sharp drop in the stock market dispelled the recent optimism of retail investors. The market was wailing, and stockholders lamented the difficulty of escaping the trap. Chinese young stockholders. Now I don't want to be rich, I just want to get out of the trap and get my money back. Why is it so difficult? What kind of market is this? It's really a one-way trip. At the end of September last year, after the Chinese Communist Party authorities launched so-called policies covering monetary easing, fiscal, and stock market stimulus, the stock market soared, and many young investors rushed in, with some even borrowing money to trade stocks. Stock investment manager Zheng Shuguang. For retail investors, especially newcomers, in their minds, a bull market may mean a straight or diagonal rise, but in fact it fluctuates repeatedly. Since the A-share market rose at the end of September last year, more than 100 companies have announced plans to reduce their holdings, and the main funds in the Shanghai and Shenzhen stock markets have also taken the opportunity to flee. Analysts believe that the current policy of the Communist Party of China is primarily to stimulate the stock market through monetary easing and supply restrictions, without fundamentally improving corporate or economic fundamentals. Retail investors should be very cautious when entering the market. Zheng Shuguang. I think for these new and old stock investors who do not understand companies, cannot read financial statements, are unwilling to study companies, and lack a good mentality, they should resolutely prevent themselves from entering the market. Nomura Securities recently issued a warning that after the stock market frenzy, a crash will follow. The current situation of the Chinese stock market is similar to that of the stock market in 2015. Investors should be prepared for a crash. Zheng Shuguang. As for this wave, in principle, it can basically be imagined that it is driven by monetary and fiscal stimulus, relying on the existing economic scale under these stimuli. The long-term prospects are very difficult, and new investors are like scapegoats for securities companies to withdraw capital from the market. Many people are being lured in and will lose money very quickly. This is also the trap that the CCP is setting for its own people to collect one last haul.